I am back with Bitcoin is Freedom. This is Paul McNeil, the crypto curator, and I've got a show lined up for you. But before I get to that show, let me first thank our sponsor, RoundlyX. Listen, you can purchase Bitcoin and other cryptos assets with your spare change. And the way you do that is by using your digital card, your credit card, your bank card. You can connect to their platform. And every time you swipe it, they're going to stack sats with those little pieces of change you've got. I don't know what we would call it these days since we really don't have change. I guess those little digital bits that are left over, you can actually stack sats. So if you go over to RoundlyX, they're going to give you not $4, but $15 if you use the code Bitcoin Freedom. Check it out. Let's get on with the show.
Here we go.
Let's get started.
All right, folks, I am back once again. Love to be back talking to you guys about stuff that's been happening the first couple weeks in the month of April. Also, this is my birthday month, so I'm celebrating all month long, having a blast. And of course, I got the best present of all. Thank you, Bitcoin, for making my birthday month on fire. The price has been going bananas. And I know you all are paying attention to that, so keep paying attention to it. But today's show, and like every time previous to this, anytime the price of Bitcoin pumps, guess who begins to squawk? Our good friend Buffett. So I'm going to talk about people who you should not listen to first, and then I'm going to talk to people you should be listening to. So let's start off with my buddy Warren Buffett, Mr. Rat Poison Squared, Mr. I don't like Bitcoin. He says people like playing the lottery. It's appealing to the gambling instinct. We've had an explosion of gambling in Bitcoin as a gambling token, and it doesn't have any intrinsic value. But that doesn't stop people from wanting to play the roulette wheel. Folks, if you're listening to Warren Buffett, first of all, let me give credit where credit's due. He's a brilliant man. Even Mark Yusko, which I just finished listening to his podcast he did on Getting Off Zero, where he did this on the 19th of November in 2020, and he called Bitcoin the best savings technology on the planet. But he also said the same thing. He says a lot of people look at Warren Buffett, think he's the kind little old grandpa, He's not. The guy is a financial engineer. He has done phenomenally well at making himself a lot of money. But on Bitcoin, he's totally way off base. He's totally wrong. And if you're listening to him, it can impact your financial future. And I would hope after this show, you no longer listen to Warren Buffett on Bitcoin. On some other things, you can listen to him. But when it comes to Bitcoin, don't listen to Grandpa. Right behind Warren Buffett is our good friend Peter Schiff. Now, you all know that Peter's really buying Bitcoin, right? Don't fall for the banana and tailpipe. Listen, Peter, you can fool some of the people all the time, and you can fool all the people some of the time, but you can't fool me any of the time. Listen, I know what you're doing. You're just squawking because guess what? It gets you attention, and I get it. But he said that blockchain letter has run out of chain. And he says, get ready for the next crash. He thinks we're in a big crash is coming to this crypto market. You know what? He might be right. We might crash down, but it's not going to go away. And Peter Schiff, you have lost a lot of people a lot of money by constantly telling them not to buy Bitcoin. Because if they were buying Bitcoin at the beginning of this year, January 1st, they'd be up over 70% on their money. That's irresponsible for people that's a wealth person like Peter Schiff and Warren Buffett to do this to people. So I'm going to stop there talking about the people you shouldn't listen to because we really don't have a lot of those voices. Now I'm going to talk about who to listen to. And this is where all the fun begins. Let's start off with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That's right, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr. He had a lot to say when it comes to Bitcoin. And it is very strange that a Democratic presidential candidate would actually say the things he said because it doesn't sound like any that we've seen before, right? Check this out. He says between 2008 and 2022, the Fed partnered with a handful of big banks to print $10 trillion. That's 10 centuries of wealth in 15 years, a bonanza for the banksters. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin give the public an escape route from the splatter zone when the bubble invariably burst. So the White House is colluding with banksters to keep us all trapped in the bubble of profiteering and control. Guys, this is from a presidential candidate. Now, if any of you've watched any of his interviews, you will know that he deals with a very rare disease that have impacted his vocal cords, and he really doesn't sound that great. I don't know if that's going to impact his ability to run for president. Our presidents do have to talk, but I tell you right now, the current president we have, he doesn't sound too convincing right now either, right? So if he made it, maybe RFK Jr. can make it too. So let's go on over to Anthony Scaramucci, better known as the Mooch. He had some great things to say about Bitcoin. Bitcoin's up around 70% on the year. Said that earlier, right? And I don't think it's time to take chips off the table. Some of you might be getting nervous right now. We've been on a parabolic run. This thing's doubled like in no time. And some of us are probably starting to get this feel that, when does the pullback happen? But be careful, because Bitcoin can continue to go parabolic far beyond your wildest imaginations. Now, he says, if anything, I think it's the beginning of a new era for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and will remain patient. Remember what Travis Kling said. Wealth moves from the impatient to the patient. So let's be patient, and we'll remain disciplined through the approach that we have had for the last 20 years, which is to make a macro bet, sit patiently, and take the heat from the pundits and the critics. But anytime you've held Bitcoin in a 4-year rolling interval, you pick the day, hold it for 4 years, you've outperformed every other asset class. This is what people need to understand and grasp, that when you do buy and hold Bitcoin and you hodl through these cycles, you're going to outperform any other asset class. Folks, there's nothing else like it on this planet. In fact, when Mark Yusko did his interview with Andy Pickering from the Brave New Coin podcast, Crypto Conversations, it was 19th November 2020. The price of Bitcoin was about $18,000. Had you bought it then in 2020 and held it until today, you're still up over 50% on your money. How great is that, right? This is what this asset will do for you if you are listening to the right people. Let's go ahead and take a look at Larry Lepard. He is the founder and managing partner at Equity Management Associates, and this is what he said. I think the intelligent people in the world are ultimately, most people get the joke. And he says, let me correct it. I think the intelligent people in the world, ultimately most people, get the joke and realize that fiat currency is losing value constantly. And as the trend grows, people will go to Bitcoin. This is what we're dealing with here. We're talking about Bitcoin versus fiat currencies. Fiat currencies heavily inflated, Bitcoin heavily deflated. You want to stick with the deflationary asset like Bitcoin, because that means your money is going to stretch a lot longer than it would if you were just sitting in fiat dollars. He goes on and says they'll go to Bitcoin, they'll go to gold, they'll go to property. Nobody's going to be stupid enough to buy bonds from a set of governments that have proven they can't manage their currency correctly. I mean, what more can you say, right? I mean, the guy's got it. He said it. If you stop this video right here and watch nothing else I said, that should sum up everything for you. Right now, if you're not buying Bitcoin, gold, or property, you might be doing it wrong. Okay, just saying. Not financial advice. That's up for you to know what you got to do. My goal is to make sure that you're reading, watching, and listening what I'm reading, watching, and listening. Because if you do that, you won't need me to tell you what you need to do. You're going to know what to do all by yourself. Let's take a look at our next person, good old Arthur Hayes. The guy is just a brilliant mind, right? This is what Arthur says. This is listening CoinDesk. He says, I know it's coming. And I think Bitcoin just keeps climbing. Will it reach 70,000 this year? I doubt it, he said. In 2024, there will be a halving and more banks that have gone bankrupt in the US and Europe. He says you'll probably also have a very explicit guarantee of all deposits in the Western world by central banks. At this point, Hayes argues the market will know it needs to be in Bitcoin, gold, Ether, and other assets. Anything that isn't stocks and government bonds, he says. So he echoes what Lepard just said, right? So he's echoing that as well. So, hey, FIBOSWANNY. Hey, Maddie Sachs. Appreciate both of you guys being on. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing my Don't Fight the Fib shirt. Why? Because this is FIBOSWANNY shirt. He gave it to me. I am so appreciative that he did. Here's the thing, guys. FIBOSWANNY has had a chart. Now, just like Arthur Hayes, I'm not sure we're going to get 70K this year. FIBOSWANNY's put his charts out there. He sort of indicated something along the lines. I don't think we might make it there, but in the long term, this asset is going to continue to climb, and I think it's going to go a long ways. Fibo says, is he saying it to get elected? Yeah, you know, Fibo, I don't know if he's saying, and back to RFK, by the way, I'm not sure if he's saying that to get elected or not. I don't think he is. Apparently, I think he does have a platform that's starting to come together. It's still super early for us to know exactly what will happen. But my hope is that, you know, that it would be shocking if a Democrat got elected and was a pro-Bitcoin president. That would be a shocker beyond all shockers, given what we have. So I'm not sure. Let me continue on. You know what? I actually, my producer, I made him skip a slide. I do want to go back and catch the second slide from Larry, because this was also good. He says, if gold goes to 10,000 tomorrow, we're going to mine more gold. There's just no doubt, because we know where it is. It's just not economics to get it out of the ground right now. And we know this is true. If gold goes higher, they're going to mine more gold, bringing that price back down. You can't do that with Bitcoin. And this is what he says. Whereas if Bitcoin goes to 100,000 tomorrow, there's not going to be any more Bitcoin created. So there's a very powerful thing. There's 7+ billion people on the planet, and there's 21 million of these coins. It's a very sound form of money. Remember Robert Breedlove's formula? You should never forget it. He says what? 21 million fixed supply plus massive demand equals number goes up. Cement that. I should get that tattooed on my arm. I won't, because I don't have tattoos. But that should stay right front and center of your mind. Anytime you get woozy and weary about Bitcoin price action, just remember 21 million fixed supply plus massive demand, and that demand is coming, equals number goes up. I don't think I need to say any more. Let's go ahead and finish what Larry said. He says, as more and more people come to realize they should save in this form of money, back to Mark Yusko, best savings technology on the planet, the price is going to go much higher, in my opinion. I think we'll hit 100,000. Then I think we'll hit $1 million. I think we'll hit $1 million a coin. I'm sure my grandkids will be shocked at people who own one coin. I mean, a whole corner will be a big deal. This is what people don't understand. And those people who are smart enough to own Bitcoin now, their families probably will be incredibly secure well after they're gone. And those people that never, ever bought Bitcoin and their parents didn't buy it and no one around them bought it, very well might find themselves wholly dependent on the government to live. And that's a bad place to be. This is why Bitcoin is freedom, because Bitcoin unshackles you from the government control. Please, folks, do not miss this. Okay, let's skip over Arthur. Let's go back to Santiment. This is what Santiment said. They're one of those research firms. They said there is a rising rate of Bitcoin hodlers as traders seem to have become increasingly content in keeping their bags unmoved for the long term. A lot of people are not moving those bags, not with Bitcoin. We saw a similar trend from January 2021 through April of 2021, when Bitcoin rose above $64,000 for the first time. Can you imagine? It was a year ago, Bitcoin was above 64,000. Guess what? We're halfway there almost. Isn't that shocker? After all this brutal winter we went through, we're almost halfway back up to the top. Shocking. Bitcoin is back below 28,000. Now, this was written on April 10th, my birthday, 2023. He says Bitcoin is back below 28. Shocking. We're above that, $2,000 above that. And unique tokens moved continue to be a point of concern. When looking for validation of mid and long-term bull runs, utility should be rising. For now, 105,000 Bitcoin is moving per day. That's 56% less than its one-year peak in June of 2022. Craziness, right? And it seems like it's been forever we've been in this bear winter. I mean, it's this Bitcoin winter. But we're starting to unthaw. And as Mark Yusko has said, we're not in crypto winter mode. We're in crypto spring. We're thawing out. And soon it's going to be crypto summer. All right, let's take a look at our friend Bali Jai Balaji, however you want to pronounce it, Srinivasan. This is our friend who used to be at Coinbase, right? He says, I think we see an exit from the US banking systems toward Bitcoin over the next weeks and months and perhaps years to come. The exact timeline of 90 days, I don't think it's impossible that happens given how fast digital bank runs happen, but directionally, it's much easier. Timing is hard, prepping is easy. And this is the thing. I think everybody knows now that Bali Jai didn't literally mean that Bitcoin was going to go to 1 million in 90 days. I think he was figuratively saying that given the state of the banking crisis, yada, yada, yada. So that's where it is. When it comes to the de-dollarization, there has been a lot of conversation on that, Fibo. And in reality, there was a great podcast. I think it was my podcast of the day yesterday. I think it was, yes, it was on Wednesday. It was PRESTONPYSH's Bitcoin Fundamentals. They talked about this. Is it really going to be an issue? People don't realize this. Even if these countries want to de-dollarize, they can start that process now. We probably won't see a full de-dollarization for decades. Bitcoin. The US dollar is just entrenched into the global financial system. It is going to be hard to fully unseat it. So will people begin to make a transition? Yes, they will. Will we ultimately see the dollar lose its status as the global reserve asset currency? Yes, we will. Will Bitcoin potentially become the global reserve currency? Possibly, probably too. But the reality is this. Right now, Bitcoin is the global reserve asset, not currency, asset. And that's important to know. Yes, the hyper-Bitcoinization will be coming. That's what our good friend Nick said. Okay, the second slide from Bali Jai Srinivasan. He said, Bitcoin is actually free markets. And now we're having the true election, which is between the US dollar and Bitcoin, where people are again voting against central planning of a very different kind. I believe FIBOSWANNY has talked about Bitcoin being a peaceful revolution, right? And I think that this is what we have to realize. You can vote so peacefully today with buying Bitcoin. Put all your money Bitcoin. I can't say that because that's financial advice. What I am doing is I am putting my money in Bitcoin. And if people want to do that, that's up to them. That's not for me to tell you to do. Okay. And Bali Jai goes on and says, that's actually the macro frame and I have on this. That the level of instability in the Federal Reserve has been causing. They're now in a state of like a plane experiencing turbulence. Can I predict every single gyration they're going to make? I cannot. And ultimately predicting a lot of macro economy is on that. Can I know that there's going to be passengers who are hitting the eject button and like this pilot doesn't know what they're doing? We're getting into the parachute and Bitcoin is the parachute. We're getting out of this plane. Yes, there will be more. And that's really what it boils down to. Bitcoin is a parachute from a plane that is probably ultimately going to crash. Get yourself out. Mike McGlone, everybody knows him. Anytime you see a news article that says the Bloomberg analyst is talking about Mike McGlone, there's only one. And I've been tracking this news for years. And every time I see Bloomberg, I immediately say Mike McGlone, and it's Mike McGlone. He says Bitcoin now more reliable than during Satoshi Nakamoto, despite U.S. authority attacks. Can you imagine that? Bitcoin is now more reliable now than during when Satoshi Nakamoto was dealing with it. Bitcoin is untouchable because it's more decentralized than other cryptocurrencies in the space. Okay, let's take a look at PRESTONPYSH. Everybody knows that I'm a big PRESTONPYSH fan. He runs the Bitcoin Fundamentals podcast. Highly recommend you listen every Wednesday. That's when it comes out. Normally, it's in my brief on Thursday because he records it late on Wednesday and publishes it on Wednesday. But this is what he says. Bitcoin's long-term hodlers display a level of conviction I've rarely witnessed in any other asset class. And this is true, folks. Nobody else hodls like this. I think Mark Yusko talks about this. Who held Amazon stock? Jeff Bezos, his wife, mom, and dad. That's it, right? Through those peak to troughs. Same thing goes with Bitcoin. But here, a lot of people are hodling, and we hodl all the time. As central bank policies grow increasingly manipulative, I anticipate that by the end of 2023, we'll witness these institutions lose a degree of control, injecting an unprecedented volume of fiat currency to the global economy. Consequently, I expect Bitcoin to thrive and yield substantial gains relative to any other asset class as the year draws to a close. Are you guys seeing some similarities in all of these voices? Again, Mike McGlone, Bali Jai Balaji, Santiment, right? You have Arthur Hayes, Larry Leopold. You've got Robert F. Kennedy, Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch. All of these voices are voices you should listen to on a regular basis. Why? Because what they say will impact your financial future in a good way, unlike Peter Schiff and Warren Buffett. Let's take a look at Bank of America. I'm sure you guys are like, Paul, Bank of America, really? Yeah, Bank of America. They said in the week ending April 4th, a net $368 million worth of Bitcoin was transferred to individual wallets. Get this, individual wallets. If I'm transferring Bitcoin to my wallet, what does that mean? I'm going to hodl. I don't sell from my wallet. According to a note from Bank of America's Alish Shah and Andrew Moss, they emphasize that when investors plan to hold their coins, hodl, they move them from exchange wallets to personal wallets, potentially reducing sell pressure. So if we have a reduced sell pressure and Bitcoin's popping and the demand increases, that means scarcity of Bitcoin, more pop goes Bitcoin, right? This is what they call a supply squeeze shock or supply shock squeeze. Squeeze those shorts. So I'm going to end it up by listening to Harry Dent. Harry Dent. He says, this is just the baby bubble in a longer boom that will not peak until 2030s when US millennials peak in their spending cycles. And it is not just Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just kind of a lead dog here. Blockchain is a way of reconstructing all financial services. It is basically a revolution, particularly in financial services. This is a wealth revolution. Take care, Fibo. Appreciate it, buddy. Enjoy your meeting. This is a revolution of financial services being ushered in by blockchain technology. He goes on and says that after the crash, people will say Bitcoin was total BS. It was just a big hoax. No, it's exactly what Amazon and the dot-coms did. The crash will even prove to me more that this bubble, the size of the crypto bubble, says this is not a joke. This is the next big thing happening. It mirrors and echoes the dot-com bubble perfectly. The crash should be equally bad, 95% to 96%, which is how Amazon and the dot-coms went down. And then Bitcoin will have a great boom for decades to follow. He goes on and says, I see Bitcoin becoming the standard for a digital global economy. Gold in the past was this monetary standard in a more material, less information intensive economy. But gold cannot be the standard. It is not the new economy. Bitcoin is the new economy, and it's big enough that the standard, and that's why I see Bitcoin will survive, because otherwise Ethereum does a lot more useful stuff than Bitcoin. Now, Harry Dent was talking about this potential crash coming in July of this year. So we're going to see if what he's saying is true. Listen, folks, if Bitcoin continues on this parabolic trajectory, we could see Bitcoin possibly getting up to 40, 50K, possibly back to all-time highs, and then do another crash back down once again before we do the massive run-up. Will that be the case? I don't know. I will leave that for FIBOSWANNY to tell us in his technical analysis. You should really check out his website and where he's at. I'll leave some links to that in the notes. That way you guys will have access to it. But FIBOSWANNY has been doing this job of technical analysis for a couple decades. You want to listen to FIBOSWANNY because he knows what he's doing. Lastly, here's some podcasts I want you guys to listen to. These are the top podcasts that I've had for the beginning of just this month alone, and I'll just run through them really quick. So Pomp had on Michael Shalov. He talked about, he's the man that's protecting Bitcoin self-custody from fireblocks. Then the Wolf of Wall Street, good friend Scott Melker, said hyper-Bitcoinization. We don't need banks, talking with Mike McGlone and David Weisberg. Then there was Bitcoin Fundamentals, our good friend PRESTONPYSH. Bitcoin is a strategic national necessity with Pierre Rochard. The Cafe Bitcoin podcast, they had on a lot of the great voices that's on that podcast. Bitcoin will back the US dollar. That was a question mark. And plug and play Bitcoin Lightning vending machines with Renee Aaron. Bitcoin Audible, good friend Guy Swan, was talking about, he was doing his read 718. Bitcoin does not waste electricity. It was a reading from Beauty on. GM, which is the Decrypt podcast, they had the Mooch on, and he's more bullish on Bitcoin than he's ever been. And then once again, PRESTONPYSH with James Lavish talking about why Bitcoin performs from here. So folks, I want to thank you guys for watching this and for listening in. I hope, again, you don't necessarily, this is not me saying this. This is all of these folks saying this. You got two naysayers in Buffett and Schiff, but you've got a whole chorus of other voices that are smart, intelligent, well-versed in the financial world. They understand what's going on, and all of them are resoundingly sounding the gong. You need to be in Bitcoin. Mark Yesko says, get off zero. That is what I want everyone to understand. You've got to get off zero, and now is the time. I know some of you are going, but Paul, Bitcoin's just run up 70%. What, am I to buy now? Again, I can't tell you when to buy, but I can tell you what Mark Yesko said. He said, you buy today, you buy next week, you buy every week, you buy every month, you buy. Stacking sats is important because if you do that over time, there was a news article came out that said that if you were stacking sats since the all-time highs back to today, you're up 30% on your money. Where else can you do something like this? You need to stay committed. You got to stay locked in. All right, I'm done rambling. Listen, folks, again, when Bitcoin pops, the naysayers start to squawk. Don't listen to them. Stay focused. I do want to leave you with a few things. First, my website, cryptocurator.com. It's updated every day, has a top 3 news articles on there. Today's was talking about the Ethereum's upgrade, which was a success, and Ethereum is popping off. And intentionally, I'm not here to talk about Ethereum. We've got Twitter opening up trading with eToro. That was big news. And then lastly, you got yield finance that got exploited in some kind of way. I have a video and a podcast on there every day, along with my 2 shows, Bitcoin is Freedom and Bitcoin in Politics, that I do every Thursday around this time, 1:30 my time, Central Standard Time, 8:30 in the Netherlands, where our producer is. In addition to that, we have a family of shows that you really want to watch. Go to YouTube, Bitcoin Live, click subscribe, ring the bell, like the videos, do all of that good stuff because we want you informed on what's going on. And as a result, you'll have exposure to all of our other shows. Matty Sats has a great show Beyond the Blog. We've got 3D Changes Perspectives. We've got Gingerly. We've got a lot of really great shows on there that you're going to want to tune into because we're covering a gambit of areas in this ecosystem. Not only Bitcoin, that's me, but we cover the altcoins, we cover DeFi, we cover NFTs, we cover trading. We have the whole gambit. You are going to want to tune into these shows. So we would appreciate it if you do that and then share it with your family and friends. That way, they're going to get educated on what they should do. They won't hear from us on how to do it, but if they read, watch, and listen, I guarantee you they will. Okay, this has been Paul McNeil, the Crypto Curator. You guys have a phenomenal weekend, and hopefully Monday, Bitcoin's over 35K. Let's fucking go, baby. See ya.